Rev up your engines! Well, you know how the English are trying to say, we're going to make everybody drive electric cars. We're going to ban gasoline and diesel-powered sales of new cars by 2030 or whatever year they picked, right? Well, guess what? Their electric car bubble is already starting to burst in England. Now they're starting to go back to buying more gasoline and diesel-powered vehicles. Turns out, in England, people are now starting to buy more gasoline-powered vehicles because they're saying, hey, there's a lack of a charging infrastructure. Now, a lot of this has to do with a month or so ago, Christmas holidays, where these people were trying to go places and they were waiting for 4 or 5 hours in more charging stations because there weren't enough of them, and they had to sit and wait. And it's not like, oh, well, you know, I'll go to the next one. Well, the next one's probably full, plus you might not be able to make it to the next one. Like here in the States, people will shop around for cheaper gasoline. I can drive 5 miles and get gas for 50 cents a gallon. So I'll go over there, right? Well, in terms of electricity, you might not be able to make it there. That's why you're there, to charge your car up, right? And the people are finding, gee, it's not working out too well, you know? Last year, registrations of new cars fell to a 40-year low in England, and now people are starting to buy gasoline cars. They have a surge of sales in gasoline cars. And this is the English who say, oh, we're going to go all electric. We're going to blah, blah, blah. My cause, an English executive says, the automotive industry is already delivering growth that bucks the national trend in England. You can make laws that say, oh, we want you to do this. But even in England, they can't force them to buy electric cars yet. Now, I mean, the English have so many laws that make your head spin. They tax absolutely everything they can get their hands on. They're trying to make them buy electric cars, but I guess it's starting to turn the other way now because people are saying, blimey, those things don't work. Hey, maybe we can learn from the English. Let them experiment. When they fail, we'll say, well, it didn't work in England, so let's not try it here. 9176 Kevin Wilson says, my Honda Accord takes 30 seconds to respond to the gas pedal. 92 Accord, 123,000 miles. Takes about 30 seconds to speed up when I press on the gas. Transmission fluids are full. What should I do? You got to figure out what the problem is. If it's your transmission, look at your tachometer. If your tachometer's spinning fast, going, but the car isn't picking up, your transmission's going out. And it is a 92 Honda Accord. And the weakest thing in that 93 Accord is its automatic transmission. I'm thinking your transmission's probably going out. But on the other hand, if the tachometer isn't going real high and it's taking forever to take off, you could have a weak fuel pump. You could have dirty fuel injectors. You could have all kinds of problems. You want a mechanic to put a scan tool and analyze the data. Could be a clogged fuel filter. Could even be a clogged catalytic converter, which you can have anybody pressure test. You take the oxygen sensor off the cat, put a gauge in, measure the pressure, and if the pressure's high, it means the catalytic converter is clogged up. Should have hardly no pressure in your exhaust, maybe 1 psi or something. If you find you got 7, 8, 9 or more psi pressure, it means your catalytic converter is clogged up. It can all be tested, though. Dunmore says, my car shuts off when I slow down. I got a 2003 Toyota with 245,000 on it. When I slow down, it switches off only when the VVT sensor harness connector is plugged in. When I unplug it, it goes normal. So I bought a new sensor, but it didn't change. Obviously, you have a problem with the VVT system. And when you're decelerating, somehow it's changing your valve setup too much and it's straining the engine and conking it out. You tried the sensor. Well, it's not the sensor, right? You got a lot of mileage on that engine. It could very well be that the VVT system is just starting to break down. The thing is, that's all operated by electronics and by oil pressure in the engine. Get some of my friends Bernie's ATS Health Solutions engine flush. Put it in the engine. Let it sit for 15 minutes, revved up to like 2,000 RPM, then change the oil and filter. If carbon is built up inside the system of the VVT, it could act up. If that cleans the carbon up and it starts working, that fixed it. Now, if it doesn't, odds are you're going to have something physically done to the VVT system, which is going to cost a lot of money. They eventually will break down, and you got to replace that whole cam system. It costs thousands to do. In that case, you might, 245,000 on, you might think about getting another vehicle. Or you might think about just unplugging it and driving it unplugged. I've had people do that with Toyotas and Hondas, and you get worse gas mileage, but they still run. You might just do that if it's going to cost you a fortune. Arnold Lorenzi says, why won't my Nissan Sentra accelerate? It's 2015. It's only got 60,000 miles. My car won't go over 3,000 RPMs. Now, I got rid of it, and I'm never going to buy a Nissan again. I'll stick back to Honda and Toyota. Why do you think it wouldn't? It wouldn't go over 3,000 RPMs. Generally, when it gets stuck like that, you either have a clogged catalytic converter and it can't blow the gas out, You can test that with a pressure gauge. Or the fuel pump is not pumping enough pressure. Now, even something as dumb as a clogged fuel filter can do that. So the first thing you do would be change the fuel filter, right? That didn't fix it. Then you would pressure test the system. You can't just pressure test the system by the engine, the fuel system, because the filter's back there. And if it's clogged, you might get low pressure, and it's not the pump, but the filter. And the filters cost nothing, and the pumps cost a fortune. So that's probably what it was. Now, it's a moot point because you got rid of the car. Said you're going to get nothing but Hondas and Toyotas now. Smart move. But it could have been a relatively simple thing with only 60,000 miles on it. I doubt if anything major had gone yet. So clogged fuel filter, bad fuel pump, clogged catalytic converter if you bought bad gasoline. Could have been what it was. Could have been as simple as just a fuel filter, but you got rid of it. The Sentras are kind of crappy anyway, so what the heck. You learned a lesson. Sammy Nate says, what fuel-efficient car should I buy? I'm thinking about changing my 2015 Jeep Cherokee Latitude for a small car. And I'm not driving. I want to save money on gas. What are some good recommendations for a newer used 2 to 3 year old Econobox? Looking for sedans or hatchbacks. Stick to just Toyotas and Hondas because they're the best. You know, you get a Toyota Corolla hatchback, or just a Toyota Corolla. You could get a Honda Civic. You could look at any of the Hondas and Toyotas and see what you like. They're both excellent made vehicles. See which ones you like driving, which ones are available in your area, because it's used. So you might have your heart set on a unicorn, but if you can't find a unicorn, you're going to have to buy something else, right? But if you stick just to the Honda and Toyota Econobox cars, you're really not going to go wrong. I personally am a Toyota man myself, but the Hondas can last a really, really long time too. I would stick to those two if I were you. That makes the most sense. It makes sense to get rid of the Jeep. You know, they're gas hogs. And you say, well, you want a small Econobox now to save money. It'd be a smart move. Do it a Honda or Toyota, and then you can keep driving them forever. I own a Dodge van, says. I got 2012 Dodge Caravan. It shifts weird. It's got 240,000 miles. It has to warm up for 45 minutes when it's below 32 degrees before it'll shift into sixth gear. Do you have any ideas? The tranny was crap, but the dealer rebuilt it at 35,000 miles. Now it's got 240. It worked okay until this. If you've been changing the fluid and filter regularly, and it's time to change it, do that. It's warming up and then going in. I mean, it's obviously worn going into sixth gear. But I've had great luck myself with an additive. It's a company called Lube Guard. Lube Guard. You would just, if the Lube Guard, say, is 10, 12 ounces, you'd suck 10, 12 ounces out of the transmission, and then you'd pour the Lube Guard in. And after you drive it 200, 250, 300 miles, a lot of times it will clean the varnish off of the stuff that's going into sixth gear, and it might work better. Now, if that has no effect at all, then it's just physically worn inside. And my advice is live with it, because the 225,000 miles on a van, it's amazing that it's still going, even though, look, the first one they rebuilt at 35,000. It broke down that fast, and now you got another couple 100,000 miles on the thing, just about. It's still going. I mean, it lasted a lot longer than the original one, right? But eventually it is going to wear out. But do try the Lube Guard. It's pretty good stuff, and often it will stop a problem like that. But if it doesn't help at all, it just means it's wearing out. I would just baby it as long as it went. I mean, the thing's not worth much anymore with all that mileage on it. Would you really want to spend all that money rebuilding it again? I personally wouldn't do something like that in a van like that. It wouldn't be worth putting that kind of money into it again. The engine's going to wear out. Other things are going to wear out. It wouldn't be worth throwing the money of a whole rebuild again on that. Martin94 says, the missus and I are squabbling over our next car. My wife and I have a 2015 Dodge Challenger XXT. It's not paid off. We need a bigger car and disagree on what's the best way to trade in the Challenger and get into a bigger car or SUV. People like the Challengers. A lot of young guys like them, right? And you want to get a bigger car or an SUV. Numero uno. The best thing is, forget the SUV and go for a car, because SUVs are overpriced. Everybody wants one. They charge too much money for them. Much better idea to go to a car. And if you want a really nice family car, get a Toyota Camry. Lots of room. They can run forever, even though it's a squirrely operation. You might try if you can find one of those Caravanas. The company is on the verge of bankruptcy. At last straw, companies will try to make any kind of a deal to make money before there's nothing left, right? So they know they'll be able to sell that Challenger because somebody always wants a fast, racy car, right? Going from a fancy, racy car to a plain Jane Camry or something like that, you might get a decent deal there because they're on their last legs. All they care about is selling, and they know they can sell a Dodge Challenger really fast. People want the racy fancy looking car, right? So you've got that in your hand, and you go for a more plain Jane car, you might get a decent deal. If it's not Caravan, try all the other ones and see what kind of a deal you can get. You don't want to get an SUV because the prices, everybody wants them. The prices are way too high, but sedans aren't as popular as they used to be, and you want a nice four-door Camry, four-door Accord or something, you might be able to get a good deal that way. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.